Hi, everyone. Heather here with the California After School Network. Thanks for joining us for our Fireside Chat number 18 with Michael Funk from the California Department of Education, Expanded Learning Division. And we are also really excited to be joined this week by the Boys and Girls Club of Garden Grove. So we've got Mark, Christina, and Justin here. Welcome to you all. We're excited to chat with you in a few moments. But first, there's, as always, a few policy updates. So Michael, I'm going to kick it off to you to start with that before we jump into our conversation.
Thank you, Heather, and hello, everyone. I just want to acknowledge that it's been a pretty stressful couple of weeks since we've been on for everybody in California, and whether it's smoke or fires and people losing homes and schools being damaged and, needless to say, coronavirus and continual strain and stress around what a just society looks like and feels like and what we experience. It's a lot. And I'll say a few words in our closing about that, but I just wanted to welcome you to this, to us, to this space, to a place just to settle back and hear from some of your colleagues what's going on in Garden Grove. But before we go there, I just wanted to give a couple of quick updates. This past week, the governor signed Senate Bill 820. Senate Bill 820 was a second version of the trailer budget bill. And I'm going to resist going into the policy geek world with you, but that's a follow-up to Senate Bill 98, which if you go to our website has a lot of the guidance. That's the bill that actually waived certain parts of Ed Code that dealt with the hours of operation, et cetera, and ratios. So there were two small additions in SB 820. SB 820 did a lot of things for education in general, but especially specifically for expanded learning. Everything in SB 98 was preserved. So none of that has changed. Two small things were added. Number one, because of an oversight, SB 98 waived the hours of operation and the scheduling requirements for elementary and middle 21st century and ACES programs. SB 820 also waives the one requirement that Ed Code has for assets programs, which is our high school 21st century federal program. And that is for assets, the programs are required to operate 15 hours per week. That is now waived. So the same flexibility is provided for high school programs. And then the second thing it does, in addition to SB 98, which doesn't affect a lot of people, but it's important for those it does. There are a subset of programs out in California that receive what's called an ACES, Frontier Transportation Grant. That means you're way out in the boonies and there's not a lot of people that live around you. So there's a special grant that is available that many of you have applied for and received that is intended to help with transportation needs because of the remote rural setting. Flexibility is now granted for you to spend that money in any way necessary to support your community and your families, just as another effort for us to give you the kind of flexibility that you need to do. And we have also been working, we talked last time about some confusing guidance around licensed programs and the waiver requirement from the Department of Social Services and requirement for ACES programs if you serve children over 30 hours or the program is open more than 60 hours per week. I'm telling you, we're still right in the middle of that. We do know that the waiver is something that is issued by the regional office. And there is, if you just Google the Department of Social Services regional offices, you'll find a list. And they are the ones to contact, and they are the ones that will guide you through that waiver process. There are some complications. I've been working with many people across the state about some hiccups or some misunderstandings. And just last evening, myself and two of my administrators had a meeting with the head of community care licensing and started to work some of those things out. I can tell you that even on that call, those at the highest level are still slightly, there's some misconceptions about what this is or what it's not. And rather than go specific, just know that we're continuing to work on that and we'll issue more guidance as soon as possible. With that, very pleased to welcome Mark and his team from the Boys and Girls Club of Garden Grove, California. And I've heard about the Garden Grove Boys and Girls Club for years. Your reputation goes before you. When I've been in meetings with National Boys and Girls Club staff, and when we talk about where are the bright lights in California, oftentimes the Garden Grove Club comes up. So Mark, I just want to toss it to you first, just to give us a little bit of what's the ride been like for you in the past, 7 months, and what are some highlights? What's happening in Garden Grove?
Yeah, we appreciate it. And, thank you, Michael, not just for those words, but for the time today, for the updates. I got some live updates here, so I appreciate that. And then thank you to Heather and the California After School Network for your continual support of, really kind of messaging out to the field as much as we can. It's obviously for all of us, it's been tough. I've watched as many of these as I can along the way, the Firesides. I know Fontana a couple weeks ago shared their story and journey back to, I think it was April, where we are friends here at the YMCA with Teresa, and we got to hear. So, we've been listening and learning ourselves and doing our own work here in our communities. The reality is, everything you just said about our organization, it's the people here. It's the Justins of our group, right? And the Christinas of our group. And so they're the ones that, really over the last 6 months, my heart's been with them. I think they're here to serve kids, to do it in person in most cases, or whatever capacity we can. But this is, I say it all the time, Justin knows this, right? This is a people business. We are good human beings working with young, impressionable kids. And this is the time they need us. This is the time they need us most. And so, that's been the challenge. We are now at a clip of reopening our ACES sites on a weekly, if not bi-weekly basis. So we have 3 ACES sites running right now in full operation. We are well overstaffed at those sites to kind of accommodate all of, obviously, the pandemic policies and whatnot. And then we opened our 3 traditional clubhouses on Monday as well. And working through the waiver conversations and making sure we have the right authorities. Our board's been right there every step of the way, as has our school district. It's been a great testament to our partnership over the last 20 plus years to find ways to serve the community and to do that together. So, really the goal, the big goal here is to get back to our 50 sites. We've got 39 elementary schools, 9 intermediates, and 2 high schools through asset funding that really, they all need us. And so we're trying to figure out, we're in the midst of it right now, whether that's a hybrid model, a full in-person model, or a little bit of both. I think the flexibility and really the creativity of our staff has been instrumental. So, we've had to work through a lot of conversations. We have quite a few people here, and they're all incredibly important to what we do, every single one of them. And so whether it's in a leadership position like Justin, I actually started here 14 years ago working at an intermediate site, and that's where I really fell in love with the work. And so along that journey, we've never quite had anything like this, obviously, but it really allows us an opportunity now to refocus. The more information we get, from your department, Michael, and through our region consultants, Fred Buggs, and it's just this great network that really we've had to rely on more than ever before. So we're going to let Justin today kind of talk about one of the real areas that we've had our own journey on, and we by no means have figured out, and that's our social justice and equity work as it relates to our young people. So we've invited him today, and he is the leader of leaders within our organization, and we'll talk through kind of our methodology and really our approach to that. But that's why we've asked Justin to be with us. And then Christina has really headed up all of our community programs for so long and works in the mental health space in a way that it's become much more obvious in terms of the need, the trauma that all kids are going through, all families are going through right now, and really the way that CBOs can uniquely position themselves for that. So, my hat's off to everybody that's been on this fireside chat before us for doing the work. It's inspiring to people like myself to see you guys doing it. And we're just grateful for the time to kind of share a little bit of what we're doing.
Thank you, Mark. Justin, brother, tell us what's going on for you, and I'd like to ask you after you just introduce yourself to us, what are you hearing from kids? What are you hearing from students?
So my name is Justin. Again, a supervisor over here. I will say, man, I'm representing a group of about 20 of us. You know, I'm just fortunate enough to be the face. If it was up to me, I wouldn't vote for my face to be the face of this, but that's the position we're in. Yeah, but you know, like Mark mentioned, man, you know, I think after what happened with George Floyd back in May, much like the rest of the world, man, you know, we felt as an organization, man, we needed to take a step back and reflect. And fortunately, you know, this task force got the service as the mirror for that reflection and really just kind of gauge, you know, we look at our mission statement, our values, our vision, and just the opportunity we have to work with, you know, these kids every day. It was gauging, man, whether or not we're really doing what we can do. And I think, you know, much like the rest of the world, it was some areas we were, and maybe there were some areas that we weren't. And as a task force, man, we kind of wanted to position ourselves to first find out how we got here, how we got to this point where things like that are still happening, and really took like a historical dive into the history and story of this country. And it's hard to do that without looking at the history of Black folks in this country. So as we kind of went through that journey with them and as a group, it really kind of showed, you know, that these things constantly happen. You know, just brutally honest, right? I was sharing with Mark yesterday. You know, for myself and some of us on the task force, we understand, you know, that there's evil in this world. And that's just the reality of it. And we find that it manifests differently through time. But as I mentioned earlier, you know, it's also, we see wonderful leaders emerge, and through that, and you think about Tupac's, you know, rose from the concrete. And so many have come before us that have, you know, combated these things that are happening. And really for us was trying to find out, okay, you know, when we look at history and we see what's happened, what's been done, we got to find for ourselves what we're going to do, what role we plan to play in all of this. And so you talk about, you know, what the youth are saying. I will say, man, there was a protest held in Garden Grove, and that was put together by students of that district. It was put together, you know, some of the folks on there have come through some of our clubs, and how powerful it was to see the youth out there, and, you know, to see members even of the organization just, you know, come into a place of saying, yeah, something needs to change. And I think as an organization, right, I think personally, everybody has to do that on an individual level. But thankfully, man, our organization positioned itself to figure out how we can service in that regard. And so when I think about what the youth are saying, I think about what they're seeing. I think about how they're processing what they're seeing. And I look at the opportunity we have every day, the 180 days we get in our programs, to have that conversation with them. And also sharing with Mark, it's nothing major. I think we're really just trying to find out, when we look at our mission statement of, you know, enabling our youth, those that need us most, you know, to be productive, caring, and responsible citizens. Part of that is being a leader. Part of that is speaking up when it's time to speak up. And really part of it is just teaching them characteristics of leadership, teaching them that when we uplift one another, that's something that benefits us all. But we got to get to a place where we care about each other that much to do so. It's not easy work. But it is something that, again, our organization positioned itself to say, all right, let's take a look at that. And so with our task force, we've been looking kind of in three sections. We're looking at the language of our organization and really examining our culture to make sure it embodies, you know, these values of social justice. When we talk about diversity, we talk about even CQI with the standards we have, and if we're actually doing that on a level that includes these different elements. We're looking at the training and development of our staff. What kind of support do they need to uphold this vision or uphold our mission statement and carry out our values? And then really it's looking at what we can actually take right now to these children, to our members, to our youth. For one, just to help them process. Again, I think about what they're seeing. 2020 has been a crazy year. And so how are they kind of going through this whole situation? And then also, man, what can we do to help build them up and become leaders for, you know, the next generation to follow?
So a lot of integrity and a lot of integrity in your voice and your message, Justin. And one of the things I resonated with is the fact that you're taking the courage to think about equity in a reflective mirror and think about the mirror versus the lens. We often talk about that so many times we get some framework for equity and use it as a lens to judge others, when in fact we have to start with ourselves. I wanted to, a mentor of mine gave me shared this article that I would recommend to all of us. It was really another layer of eye-opening. It's called America's Enduring Caste System. It's from the New York Times Magazine, but it's a very powerful parallel of the caste system in India and the caste system in America. And so the more we, as you've done with the courage of reflecting, I wonder, one more quick question, Justin, what is it that gives you hope? What is it that gives you the strength to get after this every day?
Yeah, I shared this Tongan proverb with our organization, but it's, man, forgive me for butchering it for my Tongan folks out there. But I believe it's Hokope Fau Moi Fau. And when translated, Alicia, I'm sorry if I butchered it, but when translated, it means let us match hibiscus with hibiscus. And the context of that proverb is more so when you look at things across generations, that usually when one generation is great at something, you want to pass that on to the next generation so that they can uphold that greatness and whatever it was. And really, man, just, we look at indigenous people, man, there was an understanding about life and about, humans, about mankind that really kind of precedes any sort of barriers that has been created since. And it's that idea for me of just, like I shared before, man, there's stories that have come before my own story that I value, and uphold with so much honor, especially my parents. And when I think of that just on a grander scale of just the world, man, when you look at history, we've seen Malcolm X, we've seen Dr. King, we've seen other leaders who have emerged throughout time to combat, these crazy things that are happening. And like I shared earlier, man, there's evil in the world. And for me personally, I've come to grips with that reality just from my own experiences. But it was that idea of, rather than allowing things to be seen through a lens of, well, if it happens, it happens, or come what may, I've been empowered through the people that came before me to look at it and say, nah, we're going to do something about what's going to come later. And if there's an opportunity to take action, then we're going to take action. And I really look at, again, just the work that not only we're doing, man, there's a lot of great people out there that have done things and continue to push positivity and impact forward. So it's just one of those things of knowing, okay, if they've done it in the past, they positioned us to be here where we are, it's only right that we kind of do our part as well and be a contributor to continuing this battle. Really, that's what it is for me.
Yeah. Christina, you're not only a leader at Garden Grove, but you're actually one of the leaders of the leadership team of the California After School Network. So you're vested in the local community. You're contributing statewide in so many ways. I wonder, as you listen to Justin and Mark speak, what else would you like to add about either Garden Grove or California, about your story and what you see?
I would definitely say that through the work of CAN, and that's also been 15 years of my life working in Garden Grove in a untraditional role in after school, providing mental health and case management and basically a family resource style of program, that now more than ever, it is so apparent that the power of after school programs have on the community. And if we were positioned better or knew how to mobilize our resources before the pandemic, we'd be in a different spot. After school programs touch millions of kids, and that it is such an intimate relationship that supervisors and youth development professionals have with the kids and the families. They're the ones that know the needs of the community better than anyone. And knowing that is so powerful, and they're trusted, and having that trust is huge. So when this happened, we know that our families reached out to us, and luckily we were in a position able to answer their questions, have a really large community network of resources that we tap into. So if they needed food, if they lost their health insurance, or but primarily with the parents. I work a lot with the parents, which I think we all talk about the kids, but the parents, they're more important than the kids, because if we want our work to last, we've got to tap them into our philosophy, right? And teach them as well. And not always tell them the negative, right? And show that, we're in this together. We're all in this together. And I think hearing the stories of the parents and the struggles that they're having hopping online, or even just figuring out what we do every day with the kids, right? And, and we have families of 8 living in a 1-bedroom apartment that used to be okay, but then transitioning to all day being at home where they don't have places for the kids to sit, and figuring out, okay, let's get them some sofa beds so the kids can have a place to sit and do their work and be able to interact and hop online to see their friends and programs. It's huge. It's huge. And I think that recognizing that we need to tap into the parents as well and know the resources in the community to get some of those basic needs fulfilled first, so then learning and living can happen.
What I resonate so much with, and in part because of my 2 decades of work in San Francisco, is, and I'm still working hard to communicate, is that what you just described was so much more than expanded learning as another educational program. It is a vehicle to serve and to be in relationship with families, to understand for them to be seen, for them to receive the support they deserve. And that's what I hear. And that's why I so appreciate the fact that your organization's work is not just a program. It is a relationship with your districts, with your community, with your families. And Justin, even just hearing you talk before we turned on the recorder, there's such a deep thread of connectivity between you and your ancestors, and you and your community, and you and your peers. Very powerful. Mark, how challenging has it been to keep that vision and support that vision, that holistic approach during this time?
Well, I tell people before this I had hair. No, I'm kidding. It's the best kind of stress I could say, right? I've got 3 young kids at home. I all under the age of 7. I know what they're dealing with. I do, but I also feel very fortunate, to be in the situation we're in personally. And I think the motivation, of hearing people like Justin and Christina and the people that serve every day, that's what inspires me. But it's been challenging. I think the biggest piece is how do we ensure that we're doing things the right way, where safety is obviously the priority, but it is also not continuing to be an inhibitor of progress, right? Like, we have to get back out in the field. We have to figure out a way to do it in this new normal, because the kids need us and the families need us. And it's really our calling, right? As youth development people, as community-based organization people, and Justin knows that, everybody that works at his site, almost all of them are ready to go in one way, shape, or another as we work through, how we do this. So, working with the board, working with the school district, we are on the phone constantly. We're talking through, different types of maneuverability through different schools, dealing with each individual principal, trying to come up with plans that match the needs of their individual schools, and just the massive coordination. I think we all took for granted this kind of environment we were in prior to March in this sector, that, we were battling quality and we were battling, value add and just trying to get better each year. Right. And with a layer of sustainability, as we've all worked through over the last several years. But, it's all been pulled out from under us. And I think we've had to be inventive in a way where collectively as a field, we've never had that challenge. But it's all about the people. It's all about the ones that wake up every day, the Justins, the group that make it happen. And then on top of that, we're asking ourselves a question as an organization: how do we do more in certain areas? And without a doubt, our work as it relates to young people relates directly to the conversations going on in the country and in the world around social justice and equity. And we have an obligation collectively to address that with kids and to answer that opportunity, right, that's in front of us. And so our districts dived in. They've offered up a slew of trainings around cultural proficiency and really working through kind of how do we do this hand in hand. But really, it's been internally a dialogue of looking ourselves in the mirror and saying, and again, I want to make this very clear. This is a journey that we are just embarking on, right? But the leave behind, and I guess the piece that I'd really like everybody to just kind of think about is you got to start somewhere, right? You've got to ask some internal questions within your organization around what is our role, where are the opportunities, and how do we empower the people who work with the kids and the families every day, because they're the ones that are asking the questions of how do I work with young people around this? And how do I do it in a way where I feel confident, I feel supported, not necessarily guided all the time, right? I think you want that to be organic and authentic in a lot of ways, but we're not leading kids in any direction. We want them to find their own voice in this, but also understand there's always a right and wrong. And you have an obligation, as we do, to help you become that better citizen. So, I would say, I said it before, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in this chaos and crisis, right? Is because we're all jumping in together and we're all supporting one another, and the work continues. I've never felt like we sell anything here. That's the beauty of working in this type of world, right? Is the mission sells itself. But now it's this calling of how do we rise to the challenge, right? Kind of that hibiscus will meet hibiscus. Sorry, I butchered that one, Justice, but it's that full circle idea. We've got to continue to climb and get better and be innovative and creative and be empathetic, right? Above anything else in this time right now, people are struggling through a lot. And if that empathy can come through authentically, we can all get back to where we once were. And really the goal is to be better from all this, to learn and to get better.
Amen. By the way, before we sign off, where do you get your hair done?
It's probably the same place as you. I told somebody this morning, one of my staff, I said, your hair's looking kind of long. You should just come to my barber. I haven't paid for a haircut in about 20 years. I save a lot of money.
Heather, I'm going to turn it back to you for our.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys, for this opportunity.
Yeah, well, thank you to all of you, Mark, Christina, and Justin, for sharing how you're leading in your community. We really appreciate it. And I know the CAN team definitely appreciates Christina and all that she's done in contributing and supporting us. So thank you for joining us today and sharing the great work you're doing and being a role model for not just your community, but for the state of what this work can look like. And I know, Christina, you said it, expanded learning does so much with so little already in terms of not just serving the students, but serving the community and, kind of being the first ones there to meet the need. And so imagine if we were better, well-resourced. And so that's where advocacy definitely comes in. And Lights On After School is just around the corner. So we're gonna really start kicking off that year of advocacy and see if we can get expanded learning to be more well-resourced. But with that, I'll turn it over to my school for closing comments and then we'll sign off.
Well, Justin, thank you for what you're doing. I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. The role of the site coordinator and the site lead in our after-school expanded learning ecosystem is the foundational role of leadership that we have. It is absolutely the most essential workforce part of this piece, and your leadership has so much direct impact on the lives of the people that are serving the children, as well as I know, I can just tell you're also serving as you're leading. And it's been referenced several times here today. I know several hours ago I was just feeling fatigue. It was just I was just, this has gone on a long time. 7 months is a long time, and we got a long way to go. And so many of each of you on the screen, all of you watching, we're all tired. You're trying to help your own children learn at home. You're trying to help support families. You're trying to get the work done. And it can be really exhausting. And it's interesting, some of the comments that have been made today. I decided to read this poem. I've never closed with a poem before, but I'm going to read a poem that has meant a lot to me today. And I just said, why don't I just share it? Because it had some meaning for me today. It's often attributed to Mother Teresa, but it was actually written by a man named Kent Keith. But it's typically called Mother Teresa's Anyway poem. And it was found on the wall of her monastery. Here we go. People are often unreasonable, illogical, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some false friends and some true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, people may cheat you. Be honest and frank anyway. What you spend years building, someone could destroy overnight. Build anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today, people will often forget tomorrow. Do good anyway. Give the world the best you have, and it may never be enough. Give the world the best you have anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it is between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway. We've said, if we're not doing all we can, we're causing harm. We've been pressing. I've often said on these calls, lead with love. And leading with love can be hard. Love anyway. Love anyway. Have a good week. Thank you.